Hello YouTube. Today I'd like to record a video that has a personal significance to me on the topic that I've been thinking about a lot. And I think this topic might be of interest to you due to the nature of events unfolding in the world. And this topic is whether Russia belongs to the West or not. I do not intend to talk about this issue in an academic manner or in a political manner or in any sort of structured way. This video is just a recollection of my thoughts that I have on the issue. And again, I try to bring more of a personal perspective to the issue just to maybe help you to navigate the massive amount of information that you can find on the internet on this topic. Of course, this is a very hot topic, very debated topic right now due to the war in Ukraine. And if you probably clicked on this video, you already have some thoughts on that. So let me just start by saying a few words about my background and how it relates to the topic. So I grew up in Russia in zeros, and then I moved to a liberal democratic European country in my early 20s. So I spent most of my time in Russia, so to speak. I grew up in Russia. I studied in Russia, both in school and in university, and then I moved to Europe. And here I want to just make, my first observation, and I need to say, I've been living here in Europe for um, almost 8 years already. So my first observation when I came to Europe was that there is no that much of a difference culturally between, let's say, Russia and European countries such as France, Germany, Italy, what have you, so to speak, the most advanced European economies. And when I say there is no much difference, I mean it from the perspective of integration. It's like in Europe, when you come to Europe from Russia, it's like you speak the same cultural language, but with a different accent, so to speak. But it's still the same meta culture, and I don't think you can really escape this fact until you're really blind and you try to close your eyes and try to portray Russia as something completely non-Western or completely non-European in this case. So in this sense, from cultural background, cultural codes, or just in general cultural heritage, Russia is undeniably part of the West. And again, I want to come to this, first conclusion, just from my personal observation and from my personal background. It's not if you kind of transcend political issue and just observe how people behave, how culture works, Russia is not that much of a it's not that different from other classical European societies. The second point I'd like to make is that, of course, the more you travel eastward in Europe, the more you see, so to speak, the contrast between Eastern and Western Europe. I mean, there certainly exists some type of different cultural identities in the West and in the East. And in this sense, it is even more striking how similar all Eastern European countries are. And by Eastern European countries, I mean countries like Poland, you can say maybe Czech Republic, Ukraine, Bulgaria, what have you. And the more you sort of travel eastward, the more the difference between the classical, West and Russia disappears. It becomes very clear, especially if you if you spend some time in Eastern Europe and then you spend some time in Russia, that the differences are basically, linguistic and, so to speak, cultural, so to speak, local. So the differences are very local, but by and large, it is the same cultural plus that Eastern Europe inherits. Um, and I think it has its roots in history, because Eastern Europe, like the states in Eastern Europe, formed significantly later than the states in Western Europe, and they still have the same, so to speak, cultural space. So again, from even this perspective, once you go more and more eastward in Europe, um, the necessity to draw like the strict line between Russia and the Eastern Europe pretty much, at least for me, disappears, because as such, um, there's not that much of a, so to speak, difference culturally. And the last thing I want to say that um, every European country is certainly unique in its own way. Um, and I do not deny the fact that European countries are very different. However, from the cultural perspective, and what I mean by cultural perspective is the way people interact, the way people get their education, and just in general, all those things that, compose the cultural space. They're very, very similar, to the point when you can definitely say that uh, in Europe you inhabit just like a one cultural um, space. So from those 3 points, the way I think about Russia, I think about Russia as a deeply European country, um, and thus I would say Russia, belongs to the West. Of course, you have a lot of political issues that, in the moment, are basically irreconcilable. Of course, there is no. I don't want to say that Russia is part of the West in some political sense, or it's kind of destined to be part of the West. However, if you look in the grand scheme of things, Russia definitely belongs to Europe by the way it was formed, by the way it assimilated European narratives and European culture over the span of hundreds of years. And in this way, I think to differentiate Russia from the West, or to differentiate Russia from Europe, and especially to differentiate Russia from Eastern Europe, has very little meaning. Again, this is not to say that Russia belongs to the West politically, but from a cultural perspective, I cannot help myself but to question any sort of narrative that portrays Russia as a completely non-Western country. Again, this comes from my personal experience, and I just wanted to share it with you, just as one point of observation that might help you to understand where Russia belongs, and whether it belongs to the West or to Europe or not. So, thank you for your attention. If you like the video, I plan to do more videos like that. Please subscribe and follow the channel, and see you soon.